Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Seeker's Quest. It's good to be here with you all. It's been a while, about a week and a half since we recorded one live. So it's nice to be back. And how are you, Cece?
Yeah, I was just in Singapore. I came back today, and I just reached here about an hour ago. I'm in a city called Nasik. She's one of the most sacred cities in India. Happy to be here. Happy to be with all of you today.
Wow. Do you have classes in
Okay.
Nashik? Will you be there for a while giving classes?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm doing a series on Janmashtami.
Oh, nice.
So, so
Which
I'm
is,
not able to see myself when
oh,
I'm
really?
speaking.
We can see
It's a
you.
little confused. You can hear me and see me both. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
But the
So,
big screen now is just me. It's not your tablet.
okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, there we go. Great. Great. Well, I guess Veda won't be joining us today. He's helping one of our listeners and members of his community, Kamala, transition, leave her body. So he's there with her family and friends. Last I heard, he was organizing endless kirtan. So, um, yeah, he and Kamala are in our prayers. You know, we had a really nice heart space with Kamala's husband, Ramananda, on Thursday, and heard a little bit from him about. Yeah, it was a really deep one. It was kind of a heavy one, to be honest, but it's very sobering, and it reminds us all why we do this practice, um in that the soul's journey is eternal. We're here for just a moment, so doing as much as we can to prepare the soul for its journey is just makes sense. Right?
So Kamala is she's in Atlanta, or where is she?
No, she's in Belgium. He flew out to Belgium a few days ago. Yeah.
Oh,
You just
okay.
you just popped off my screen, Cece. Um, I don't see your, yeah, there you are. Great.
Oh,
Okay. So today we're going to talk about forgiveness. This is our fourth part of the series we're doing on disagreements, no respect. Or no, disagreements, no disrespect. And we
okay.
talked a little first about causes of conflict, strategies for resolving conflict. We talked about effective communication. So now we're kind of coming to the conclusion here, and we're going to talk about forgiveness, kind of picking up the pieces and healing ourselves from conflict. And it's funny, one thing when I think about forgiveness, one thing that I think about is we talk about forgiveness with other people, and that's definitely so important. But something I struggle with is forgiving myself sometimes. I know we've talked about this on the show a couple times, but just giving your own self that grace to make mistakes or to not handle things the way that you would like to, and to let go of that as well. So as we go through today's class, I might kind of weave some of that in because I think it's something that I know I struggle with, and I hear a lot of students struggle with, and it can be so inhibiting to our own growth and our own journeys. So what do you think about that, CC?
Yeah, it. There are two situations. If we consider guilt, it is present when unhealthy or unwanted, or you could make it unwarranted, and that is damaging, and it's just as damaging and guilt is absent when warranted. Sometimes some people have done something seriously wrong, and then they're just so nonchalant and yeah, it's all right. I think both are there, and we can talk about guilt separately and forgiving ourselves also separately. More, we have talked about it once. But yes, definitely. In conflicts, there are both sides to the conflict, or two sides to a conflict. So naturally, uh, we don't want to be too hard on the other person. If I consider I am here and the other person is here, and when there is a conflict, so we don't want to have like a ton to crush the other person. You are like this, you are like that, you are like that. We don't want that, but at the same time, we don't want a ton to crush us also. So I think forgiving the other person and forgiving ourselves, both are important. Yeah, we can talk about them definitely.
Yeah. And as I
So
was reading through those points that we discussed talking about today, I felt like they could apply to both. I don't know if you but as I was reading it, I was like, oh, okay, this could also apply to forgiving myself. So we'll see how it weaves in.
yeah. So let's look at what journey we have taken till now. Overall, you want to recap the journey, Radha, or should I do that?
I think you should do it. Yeah.
Okay. So when you've been talking about conflict, basically at one level, it's just unavoidable that there'll be conflicts. So the first step is expectations. We try to lower them so that we don't expect perfection. We don't accept the idea that there is a perfect partner, that there is perfection. And then what happens is, with what is real, it may not be up to the stuff of our dreams, but it is something which the real can be good actually. It can even be great at times. And then after that, we discussed about perceptions, how we have our own perceptions and conceptions. And these, we need to expand them. From where they are, we want to make them broader and broader, going outward. And then we talk about our communication. So, in one sense, you can say expectations are what we bring into a relationship. This is what I expect you to be. And then perceptions are what come from the other person, how we see the other person. And then communication is, of course, in one sense, both ways. But how the other person communicates is not in our control. How we communicate is in our control. So communication, we try to make it more sensitive, more effective, more sensible. Talk about two things, sensitive and sensible. So now, today what we are discussing is, okay, if the conflict did not arise simply from misunderstanding, the conflict arose because, so broadly, conflicts can have, there are two very general categories. There could be misunderstandings. That person didn't do anything wrong, but he just thought that they had done something wrong. Or it could arise from mistakes. And on the trajectory of mistakes, there could also be misdeeds. Mistakes indicate it's more accidental or unintentional, but it could be more than that also. So if it is misunderstandings, then we address them through communication. Okay, this is what I thought, and we plan out how can we prevent the recurrence of such misunderstandings. So we resolve misunderstandings by communication. But if there are mistakes and misdeeds, then that is where the domain for forgiveness comes in. What do we do in such situations? How do we go about forgiving? So that's what we will discuss today. Anything you want to add to this recap or orientation?
No, I love how you layered in the causes of conflict with expectations kind of coming from the outside. We impose expectations on other people. And then perceptions, which is how we perceive their actions, which there could be misalignment there. They could perceive their actions as being okay, and you may not. And then communication is like kind of, it's a strategy for resolving conflict, but it's also kind of the way to it clears those things up. So if we can really fine tune our communication, then maybe we can see that our perceptions are more aligned than we thought they were. And then maybe we can also negotiate or discuss more our expectations so that they can be more realistic in a relationship. So yeah, I love the layers of those and how they all affect and feed into each other. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's move on now. So now with respect to forgiveness, I prefer to often, when we talk about things which are abstract, it is better to break them down into categories, although it doesn't all fit into very neat categories. But let's talk about this at three levels: forgiveness as intention, forgiveness as emotion, and forgiveness as action. So we could say put it associated with three levels of our being. Action is associated with the body, emotion is associated with our mind. Intention, it's complex where it comes from, but let's say that it's arising from our free will. So it arises from our soul, from the essence of who we are. So now, sometimes we may think that this action is unforgivable. It cannot be forgiven. Or sometimes we may think that I want to forgive this person, but still, as soon as I see that person, as soon as I remember what they've done, I just feel, if not a rage coming within me, I just feel an aversion coming within me. I feel a coldness coming within me. And I can't seem to be able to stop that. So if we just consider, if we don't break down forgiveness, if we just forgiveness as an amorphous whole, as an amorphous concept, amorphous means not divided, then we have these two extremes. We feel it is unwise. It is this person is so not unwise. I would say it is, this person is not worthy of forgiveness, you could say. And this action is such that it should not be forgiven. It's unwise or unworthy or unwarranted. And you could, other extreme, I think it's undoable. So they don't deserve it, or why can't I do it? Why don't I just forget the whole thing? Why can't I move on? So, but when we break it down, then what happens? We understand that there are stages in this. So, forgiveness as intention. It is doable and desirable. I'll explain these points. Forgiveness as emotion. It will happen its own course. We need patience for it. Be patient. Like explain. And forgiveness as action. For that requires evaluate. So
Yeah.
when I mean forgiveness, yeah, go ahead.
This is just really nice how you provide this progression here, because forgiveness in itself is complex, and it's easy for people just to say like, oh, just forgive and forget. It's like, well, I can't do that. But when you kind of look at it like this, and you can kind of identify maybe the stage that you're at and work through it stage by stage, it seems to make it a little bit more digestible. Like intention, I know intention for me, like if I'm carrying around a certain level of resentment, or the way that I feel around a person is like super adverse, like I can't be around them, or sometimes even like anxiety, or sometimes, frustration. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm criticizing them in my mind. And those are all like triggers that like, okay, something's going on here. And frankly, none of those things feel good. They all feel super unharmonious or disharmonious. But which one is it? They don't, it does
Disharmonious.
unharmonious. Is that what you said?
Disharmonious.
Disharmonious. Okay, disharmonious. They all feel super disharmonious, because whether or not I'm gonna, be buddy with that person and have a super close relationship, I don't want to carry around a feeling of just yuck. I don't want to feel like I have to avoid where the other person is, or like none of those things feel good. And ultimately, I'm the one that is stuck with them. It's oftentimes, maybe it doesn't even affect the other person. I'm the one that's carrying that around. And then that will come out in me in other ways. So it's like this first step of intention, regardless of what the other person has done to you, or what you feel like the other person has done to you, doing this just to heal yourself, so that you're not stuck carrying this burden that is just yuck. Like just is important. It's like making that decision, that like initial commitment. Okay, I want to get there with this person. So
The way I
yeah.
put this is beautifully put. It's very difficult to move on with our life if we are not forgiving. So forgiveness as intention, my understanding, it's almost like it's a gift we give ourselves.
Mm.
And we are worthy of that gift. So what this means is that in the forgiveness as intention means I am not going to carry the past into the future. Okay, this person did this. It was a bad thing that they did, but I am not going to carry the past into the future. So it's more of, I want to move on, and to move on, I am going to close the door to the past. This is more of closing the door to the past. Or you could say which, or to the past. Another way to put it is closing the inner replay of the past.
Oh.
Okay. So that happened, but I want to move ahead. So this, when we say it's a gift we give to ourselves, it's a gift because essentially by this, we stop carrying the burden of the past into the future. So it's this will become a little clearer when I go to the next point of forgiveness as emotion.
Yeah,
But
I like.
you want to add? Yeah.
Yeah, the fact you point out kind of getting off our own hamster wheel. I also feel like, just to again weave in forgiveness for ourselves, sometimes if you know you've made a mistake and maybe not handled things the way you should have, sometimes for me, the first thing you want to do is almost like denial. Like it's hard to even admit to yourself that you made a mistake. Like all you really want to do is kind of dig your heels in and say, no, they were wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. And then maybe even avoid the person, like maybe like, oh, I'm just not even going to see the person, or create more conflict. So either way, it's like you're really just on the same hamster wheel of like, okay, I did something wrong. Now I'm either going to react and create more conflict, or I'm going to avoid the person, which is also kind of on the same hamster wheel. So within yourself, also what I've learned is the sooner you can identify like, oh shoot, okay, I misstepped there. The more that you can just accept, I'm human. I'm gonna misstep, and I'm just gonna go to this person and apologize for my misstep. Then it's almost like oh, okay, everything's lifted. I'm good. Maybe the person's still upset. That's okay. They can still be upset, and you can get off your own hamster wheel of destruction. And this is something I've been trying to practice more and more in my life, and I've noticed the difference in how far I get in that hamster wheel and how it just compounds on itself. And the relationship gets worse and worse when it's like, okay, I'm just going to make the decision to own up to what I did, to apologize to the person, to forgive myself, to just accept, I'm going to mess up because I'm human and I'm going to correct now. And sometimes it's irregardless of where the other person is. And that can be really difficult. If the other person isn't ready to say, you know what, I messed up too, that can be difficult. But again, it's just staying on your side of the fence, recognizing your mistakes, owning up, forgiving yourself, and kind of moving forward in your own journey of it. So that's my 2 cents around that one.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, sometimes a conflict may go on not just because the other person is obstinately sticking to their as you said, digging their heels. Sometimes it may be because we just feel we are internally beating ourselves up, and somehow we are acting out in a way that perpetuates the conflict. Maybe we feel that we don't deserve to be in that relationship, that we feel that maybe this conflict and the rupture that will follow when the conflict is not resolved is what we deserve for the way we are or what we have done. So that if that inner negativity is there, that negativity can make us sabotage us. It can sabotage first by creating a conflict or aggravating a conflict, and by impeding or even imploding any conflict resolution. So I think that self-forgiveness is quite important. So at least we are not from our side doing anything to make things worse. So
yeah, absolutely. Because then it even like manifests into narratives or ways that you view yourself. And then that manifests into the people that you choose and how you will agree to be treated. So it's such like it's like something we have to identify early and then nip in the bud, like, and the impact could be detrimental to ourselves and other people.
yeah, of course, it's better to identify late than never. But
That's true.
Yeah, it's sometimes what happens is that same self-sabotaging mentality makes us believe that it's too late now.
Mm.
And yeah, it might be late. It might be better if it is done earlier. But as I say, better later than never. So
yeah. So that was intention, right?
That was intention, yeah.
Intention. So that's like kind of our first step in moving towards this forgiveness.
Yeah. So now To understand this intention part better, let's look at forgiveness as, when I say as emotion, mm, like we had discussed this theme several times earlier, like, oh wow,
I love it when
that's
I
interesting.
make a circle and it turns into a heart. And then we're talking about emotion. It's always in great times.
Yeah. The soul, mind, and body. Now, this model, it helps us understand that all three are real. And say suppose, we were traveling with someone in a car and they were driving and they were inattentive for a moment. They looked here, there, and the car hit something. The car was an accident. And then we got injured. Maybe our hand got fractured or something like that. Now they'll feel very bad. They're apologetic. I'm sorry, I did this. Now we may also want to forgive them. But so if there's an accident and then there is bodily injury, now even if that person is apologetic, or even if they're not apologetic, we still want to forgive. So forgiveness doesn't mean instant disappearance of the injury. The physical injury will take its own time to heal. So what applies to the body also applies to the mind. So we may forgive, but there is you could say, not a mental injury, but a mental wound. And there's not going to be any instant disappearance or fading of negativity. Whatever the negativity associated, it will happen, but it will take its time to heal. So just as we understand that the body will need time to heal, sometimes the mind also needs time to heal. So some people want to rush through the process of reconciling and settling the conflict. But sometimes you have to tell, yeah, I don't think I can talk about this right now. Let's wait for some time. Now, of course, this is not a universal principle. Sometimes while the conflict is there, maybe let's talk and get a preliminary clarification, understanding what happened and what went wrong. But after that, this still hurts. And the hurt will heal. But to expect that, oh, I said sorry, can't you just move on? Well, okay. But a mind is a thing in itself, and it will take time to heal. So forgiveness as an emotion is something which, as I said, it will require patience. When I say forgiveness as emotion, means many times when people do some thought exercises or visualization, they say, no, think of forgiveness as like big bags of cement on your head and on your shoulders and your back, and just forgive that person. And when you forgive, all those bags, they fall off your head and they fall onto the ground and they go away from you. And then you walk away unburdened, free, feeling lighter than what you have felt in years. And in the thought exercise, this can seem very, very inspiring, very uplifting, very liberating. But in real life, for those weights to fall off, they don't just fall off just by our thinking or willing. They will take their time. So that's why we need to be patient. And in one sense, emotions are, in one sense, not entirely, in one sense, emotions are just involuntary reactions. Not entirely, they're involuntary responses. So we don't find something comfortable. Our emotional response is, hey, we feel something. So if my hand is injured and I try to lift a weight and I feel a pain. Now that's involuntary. I don't want to feel the pain. Now I may decide not to show the pain. I may decide not to stop lifting instead of flinch. But still, uh, they will be involuntary. So this involuntary, will it change? It will take time. So of course we can decide to refocus when that intention is there to move on. The intention is there to close the door to the past, to refuse to carry the burden from the past. That means that we are trying to shift elsewhere. We shift on what is important for us. Even within that relationship, why are we in that relationship? What is important for us? So we may shift elsewhere, and that will help us to create some purpose and positivity. But still, that's like, okay, I'm taking the treatment. My hand was fractured, and I'm doing the exercise. I'm taking the medication, and it'll heal. So we shift elsewhere to create a sense of purpose and positivity. So, for example, a couple of husband and wife may have a fight, or two siblings may have a fight, but then they focus on some higher growth. They say, oh, we have children to take care of. We focus on that, and then okay, we don't fixate on the negativity towards each other. Two siblings may think of their parents. Two fellow spirituals may think of their guru or their spiritual teacher, mentor, and that focus on that higher service, that common, that shared cause, that common purpose can give them something else which creates some positivity. And through that, gradually the relationship will heal, but it's going to take time. So rather than expecting the negative emotions to go away, we focus on activating or activating, channeling healthy emotions elsewhere.
That's really good advice. And it's such an important point, is even recognizing that we all heal at our own rates. And so even something that might be easy to get over for you may not be for somebody else, and vice versa. So even part of the forgiveness piece is kind of accepting both where you're at and where the other person's at, and allowing that space and grace. I think of it, you brought up this the physical injury, and it's kind of it's super synonymous to our emotional injuries. Like, I think of it like, we're all walking around with wounds on ourselves from experiences that we've had in this world. And as we interact with each other, we're kind of rubbing against each other, and some of those scabs are like coming undone. And if the scab is not healed completely from a prior wound, it could really come undone from maybe something, even a small kind of rubbing, and it could manifest into something big. So even kind of honoring that within ourselves and other people, and not taking it personally, or not forcing ourselves to be somewhere that we're not too early, while continuing to still kind of work towards that in our own healing journey, is so important. But sometimes it's hard to understand, like, okay, well, I'm healed, why aren't they? Or how can they just get over this? And it's hurting me so much. It's like, kind of recognizing that in us all.
Yeah, true. Nicely put. If we have to acknowledge that it takes different people, somehow acknowledging that we are physically different is easy. Yeah, if two people go out in the cold, one person gets a running nose and that stays for a long time. The other person doesn't have any effect. We understand, some people are more resilient, more resistant, whatever. But at the level of the mind also, it is true. Sometimes one person speaks some harsh words to two people, maybe. A teacher speaks strongly to two students, and one of them just, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. For the second person, it's like the end of the world. Oh, my teacher is displeased with me. My teacher is angry with me. What is the point of my being a student? What is the point of my being existing also? So it's we all are vulnerable to different degrees in different ways. So that emotional vulnerability that is there, we need to recognize that. So in general, where we are vulnerable, there we become volatile.
Oh,
There
wow,
are
that's a good
small
one.
thing. So that small, when a small touch, small tickle, small rubbing, small impact also, it triggers a strong reaction. So we need to be aware that different people are vulnerable in different ways, and therefore different kinds of triggerings might be there. Mm.
Yeah. And that can also, in practice, when you're feeling, when you yourself are feeling just bottled up and super angry, also recognizing, okay, this may not be the best time to try to reconcile this. Anything that comes out of my mouth at this time is just going to aggravate the conflict. So maybe better to walk away. And then also, again, allowing the other person, like I know my husband, if we get into an argument, he needs time to go and he needs more time than I do. And he just assimilates things that way. And if I poke him, he'll just get further and further. At the same time, I worry, like he oftentimes he won't come back. So I'm like, okay, I give you time, but you got to come tell me when you're going to come back. It's like, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. Let's talk about it. Or let's talk about it tonight. I'm like, okay. So it's kind of even like finding that balance. Like, okay, I want this to be resolved. I recognize it's not the time, but let's make sure that we both prioritize the time so that it can happen and we can move through this.
Ah. It's sometimes we all are in relationships, but you're not always aware of what we are doing in relationships, in the sense that relationships are not just about relating with the other person, but it's also about relating with ourselves in a more mature way. Okay, I need to let the other person have space. It means, okay, I can't be so expecting. I can't be so needy at this point. I can't be so demanding. So that's where we come to know that sometimes, okay, we might think that this is just normal expectation. But for the other person, it might be just excessive expectation.
Yeah.
So last week, somebody told me, this is quite you are quite short-tempered. You get angry very often. I said, really? I never get angry. Said, hey. He told me 4 incidents when I had got angry. And I said, no, I was not angry in any of those situations. If you consider, for me, anger is here. I might be annoyed. I might be displeased. I might be upset. I might be irritated. I said, I'm not angry. He said, I don't know the difference. All of them seem like anger to me. So, then I realized that what would happen is, yeah, I have a short temper, but it is a short temper. That means it stays for a very short time. It is it is something which I am annoyed for a few moments. So somebody is, I'm traveling to some place and I have one program and next program, and then I'm supposed to take my meal at a particular time, and they delay the meal. I'm just speak a little word that, okay, this is going to disrupt my plan. I would say, you know how busy I was. No, it would be nice if something like that I might say. And they take it as a big thing, but later on when the food is arranged, I'll talk with them nicely and we'll have a nice discussion. and I'll forget it, but they won't forget it. So, so it's I realize that there are shades which are very clear to me, but they are not at all clear to the other person. So when you say that being annoyed is the same as being angry, it's like saying somebody is banging their fist on the table, and the second is somebody is banging the fist in your face. The two are not the same thing at all. But sometimes they can seem very similar to other people. So, yeah, I think when we relate with others, we come to know more and more about ourselves. That, okay, those small expressions of displeasure or annoyance, they would not even register as very noticeable in my own consciousness.
Yeah.
They register prominently in other people's consciousness.
Yeah, it's nice.
Quite humbling to realize.
Yeah, it's nice to hang out with people. It's nice to hang out with people that are more sensitive than us to then even kind of recognize like, okay, maybe I just for the sake of perception of other people, maybe I need to like scale back a bit. The same thing happens with me with like my husband calls me aggressive. It's like, oh, you're being aggressive. Like even the way I walk, he's like, you're walking very aggressively. I'm like, really? I'm just going somewhere. This is just how I walk. But,
walking aggressively. That's funny.
It's not like it's like he thinks I'm angry. He's just like, oh, you're but he knows me. So he knows that like my intention is not aggressive. But now like if I'm rooming with somebody else at something, I'm super careful how I walk because I don't want to be like storming around people thinking that I'm angry or something. I'm just intense. But yeah.
You said it's nice being with people who are sensitive.
Yeah.
I would add a word to it. It's annoyingly nice being with them.
You find it annoying? Annoyingly nice.
It's annoying that they're so sensitive, but it's nice because then we realize how we are not so sensitive.
Yeah. No, I think it's to be taken with a grain of salt too. Like my husband is on the other side, like he's so sensitive. And I know that. So if he tells me like, oh no, that was good, you're good. I'm like, okay, I'm good. But if he's like, oh yeah, it was really, I'm like, okay, I probably could make it a little bit better, but it's probably not as intense as he's perceiving it to be. So it's also kind of like recognizing that.
Yeah, true. So I think the last part about forgiveness, it's a big part. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to take it today. But
let's see, we have like 15 minutes left. I think 15 minutes left.
10 minutes?
15? I mean, we started kind of late, so we could probably go 5 minutes late.
Oh, okay. Let's try then. So, when you talk about forgiveness as action, there are three things in it. One is that let's put it. Actually, this is not the best way to depict it, but let me put it out there. It's the first is we need to recognize that. Before I go into that, forgiveness is not the same as trust. If we mistake these two to be the same, we will never be able to forgive. Or rather, by forgiving, we will end up ourselves in trouble. So why are the two not the same? Because actually forgiveness is for the past. Trust is for the future. And trust is for the future. Forgiveness is for the past. Say like, if you consider a simple parenting example. If the parents give some money to a child so that the child while returning from school could buy something. The child just lost the money. The parents may forgive the child. But the next day, the parents again give the same money to the child, and it happens not once, twice, thrice. Then if we lend some money to someone and they just squander it, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't do this again." Okay, my friend, I might forgive you. But if you keep lending money to the same person again and again, that is setting ourselves up for trouble. So, so in one sense, forgiveness is to be given, but trust is to be earned. That
Yeah,
means a person. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that this misconception can make it really hard to have the intention to forgive because you're almost like scared. You're like scared for your safety, like because you perceive that forgiveness means, oh, okay, I'll let them back into my life 100% the way it was before, and therefore you're just very adverse to it. But understanding, like, oh no, I can kind of control that boundary now in a way that I feel safer and better about things, then it's like saying, okay, then maybe I can let go of the past if I know I'm going to be safer in the future. So that's such a powerful point that you just defined there. Forgiveness is not the same as trust. So important.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. One of the biggest challenges is that
Your
often,
tablet went away, CC.
Yeah, I'm just trying to bring it back. Something
Okay,
went wrong over here. Sorry about it. So when forgiveness happens when we are trying to forgive, at that time, it's sometimes either we set that expectation up for ourselves or others expect it as from us that we should be trusting at that time itself. And that when that expectation is made from us, that makes things impossible. So we could put it that these three stages that I'm talking about. The first stage is forgive but don't trust. Let's put it here like this. Forgive without trusting. And then from there, things could either go upward or they could go downward. That means if we see change, positive change in that person, the change, I'll explain what we mean by positive change. Then we could have forgive and trust. But if there is no change or negative change, just go on the same track and become worse, then we may forgive. This is forgive as intention, and then we may have to discipline, seek justice, whatever is required, appropriate for us. So that's necessary. And so this is where this forgive that we are talking about is the forgive of intention. And then the trust and all these that we are talking about, trusting or not trusting and disciplining, all this is about the level of the action. So, for example, should I elaborate or you want to reflect on this before we move forward?
No, I like this. Maybe keep going.
Yeah. So, thing here is that if we understand that, okay, in general, when the other person has done something which is wrong, we're talking about there is no misunderstanding. There was actually a mistake. And it's not just a mistake, which is like a accidental mistake. It's more like a misdeed which happened. Now, if this is there, this has happened on a downward graph, then the expected response or the healthy response from that person is two things. They have to repent and they have to reform. So repent is more of internal feeling and reform is more external in terms of their behavior. And to the extent both of these are there, to that extent, then trust can be there. Okay, this is a changed person now. I'm not the person who did like that. I'm not the person who spoke like that. You may say that, but how can I believe that? I need to see some evidence for that. So this is where we have to wait and watch. And while trust is seen through actions, trust is also a matter of emotion. I feel when we trust someone, that means I feel safe with you. I don't feel insecure or uh, uncomfortable with you. So this is where the emotional healing is also coming. These are not as discrete, but it's good to see them as discrete to understand how things are working. And then if there's, on the other hand, if there's no repentance and no reform, then we have to go the other way. If there's no repentance plus no reform, then maybe we have to discipline. Okay. Now discipline is just one word over here. It could mean many things. It could mean that we just distance ourselves from that person. We may have to suspend or end the relationship. So suspend. It's interesting. I never realized that in suspend itself there is an end.
Yeah.
Okay. So we may distance ourselves, or we may even just go, even seek some what is the word? Recompense, not some commensurate. What would be the word? Some compensation, some retribution. Yeah, compensation is the best. There's some other word which rhymes with distance. I'm not able to think about that now.
This is the longest I've seen you look for words. It's happened twice now. I'm counting because you're so quick with your words that you've had to stop and think twice.
Yeah. But when was the first time?
Don't remember it at the beginning though. You kind of did the same thing. You paused and I'm like, oh, okay. He's human. He has to do that sometimes because you're so good with your words.
Okay. So this is how I think gradually this whole so sometimes conflict resolution could mean that, yeah, there's no resolution here. We just have to end this. But that shouldn't ever be the first conclusion. Because we have conflict, we can't be together, or we can't work this out. We can't work together on this. No, but sometimes that may also mean that we could accept that the two of us are different and we might function better at two different places.
Yeah, that's overall, that's a really good point in itself, is that recognizing that all of these steps we've talked about take a certain amount of energy, commitment, and time and patience. So allowing them to each kind of come to their own fruition, like setting the intention that, okay, I want to forgive this person. I want to go through this process. And then allowing the emotions to kind of settle and heal. And then getting to the point where, okay, what is this relationship dynamic going to look like going forward? Is it going to look like the same or is it not? And if you try to rush through these steps and say, oh, okay, I'm hurt. Okay, now we're not going to be together. It can be so much more damaging than anything. I mean, that's really just toxic. Is that so? Like practicing that patience of, okay, I'm feeling bad, recognizing that, going to take some space, and then giving yourself and others, again, grace to work through the steps, because And knowing too, the point you made at the beginning, like
Yeah, true.
you can have the intention to forgive, but that doesn't mean at the end that it's going to look the same. It could look all different ways, but allow yourself the space to get there.
Yeah. So can I summarize?
Yeah,
I think
please.
it's a good point. Actually, I had another session at 7 and they said that it's actually at 6 Indian time. They got confused. That's one session in America. So I'll need to go there, but I'll summarize it. Can you hear me?
Great. I can hear you, but I can't see your tablet.
Yeah. So we just discussed 3 main things today. How, if you want to move towards the last stage of forgiveness, as a last stage response to mistakes in conflict resolution, talk about forgiveness as intention that is always desirable and doable. So forgiveness is, if you just think of forgiveness only as one entity, then we may think it's not possible for me. And forgiveness as emotion, be patient. Be patient with ourselves, be patient with others, and understand that different people heal at different times. So intention means it just close the past. Patient means mind in some ways is like the body. Its injuries will take time to heal. And in terms of action, the key is to forgive is not trust. And trust has to be earned. Forgiveness can be given. And if it's earned, then we just forgive and forget. We just let go. We read that person earns our trust and we move on. But it's not earned, then we have to forgive and discipline in the appropriate whatever ways in the relationship. So thank you very much.
Good. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.